So CNN has put a decent bit of effort into covering Antifa, and actually, good for them. I went through the article right before I'm recording this, and it's actually pretty good. It's good for them. This is probably the best thing they've ever done, to be honest. I mean, I'm skeptically giving them credit because what do you know? Like maybe they're doing this just because they were forced to. That people would keep saying, "Hey, why don't they cover this?" And they're actually saying, "Okay, we gotta cover this." Maybe that's what's happening. But good for them. Although I will take a few points off because I've noticed that this title, Unmasking the Leftist Antifa Movement, it was actually not the original title. It was originally called Unmasking the Leftist Antifa Movement, Activists Seek Peace Through Violence. But they had an editor's note here saying, the story has been updated to clarify that counter-protesters say they are not to blame for violence at the Charlottesville protest. Well, no duh. The story's headline has also been updated. So while they immediately backtracked on the article headline, the article itself is still pretty good. I just want to go through this, give credit where credit is due, point out some fallacies they might have, but overall, initially, pretty good. They say, on the morning of Donald Trump's inauguration, Kevin Batt hunted through a closet in his parents' Virginia home for the darkest clothes he could find. The 19-year-old didn't own much in black, the color he knew his fellow protesters would wear head to toe on the streets of Washington that day. 19 years old, who would have guessed? As Batt drove into the city for his first ever protest, he hesitated. I thought there's a very good chance I might even get arrested. That my whole life could be radically altered in a negative way if I kept driving, and I was really close to turning around, Batt told CNN. But I think the rationale is that even if it did negatively affect my life, I had still contributed to this movement that was necessary. I was still making an effort to make other people's lives better, even if it made my life worse, and once I realized this, I had no regrets. Batt joined protesters dressed completely in black, some with their faces covered by masks, a tactic known as Black Bloc that aims to unify demonstrators' efforts to hide their identities. And with them, Batt got arrested. I do want to, the reason I'm not just saying, here's the article, read it, the reason I'm actually making a video on is because there's a few things I think they leave out that people reading this article wouldn't just fully grasp about Antifa. There's a bit more to the story. And I think right here it shows that this is the standard member of Antifa, as far as I can tell. A young kid who really is committed to this, feels that, nothing else matters. This is something that matters. I have to do this. This is so important. He was rounded up with more than 200 other people and charged with a felony for inciting a riot. He has said he didn't engage in any violence and has pleaded not guilty. A federal indictment charges individuals in the group with starting fires, property destruction, and physical violence that erupted on the streets as the 45th President of the United States took his oath of office. Now, this is known as, they call this J20, or you might see the hashtag Disrupt J20. This was the whole, all the protesters in the streets saying, we got to let people know that we're upset, that this is wrong. And they actually think this is wrong. They actually think this is corrupt, even though, again, I don't think our system's perfect, but by the rules of the system, he has won. Many of those arrested identified themselves as part of the Antifa movement. Its name derives from anti-fascist, and it has come to represent that what experts who track these organizations call the hard left, an ideology that runs afield of the Democratic Party platform and supports oppressed populations as it protests the amassing of wealth by corporations and elites. So they're protesting income inequality, and they're not protesting just corruption in the sense of hey, they're stealing money. To them, it is stealing. But they are also protesting people that have genuinely earned their wealth. They are true anarcho-communists. They believe in true, not true equality, absolute equality of outcome, in the sense that, hey, everyone should be exactly the same. and I have seen some kind of, not rumors, but I've seen a few people saying Antifa actually means anti-First Amendment instead of anti-fascist. And, well, that is true in the sense that they use fascist tactics and they also are against the First Amendment. There is no secret part of Antifa that's we're actually going to call ourselves anti-fascist even though we mean anti-First Amendment. I mean, they really believe they are anti-fascist, and they don't believe they're anti-free speech. Because to them, hate speech is violence, and it's not free speech. But that's the thing, while it is true that they are anti-First Amendment and they're not anti-fascist, this isn't actually what they call themselves in terms of labels or whatever. But Antifa activists who operate without any centralized leadership told CNN that their goal is peace and inclusivity. They often denounce capitalism and government. Since Trump entered the world stage, they've condemned his push to tighten immigration rules and what some would view as his tendency towards racism. Now, I'm nitpicking here with CNN, but good. That's a thing I appreciate. I don't know if they did it in good faith or if they're like, hey, this is how he wrote it, so you guys can't yell at us. I don't know. But they did say what some view as his tendency towards racism. So I'll give him points there. I'll give him points. But they weren't just like, yeah, he's racist. They were like, yeah, some people think he's doing this. So good for them. While Antifa members don't fit a single category, they say many are millennials and many live on society's fringes. Undocumented immigrants, transgender people, low-wage workers, those who don't conform to the traditional 9 to 5. Now that's another thing to figuring out what they're actually about. And remember, they're about they are anarcho-communists. They're people like they're again illegal immigrants. They're low-wage workers. They're people who are like, hey, I want more, and I don't really have like much to devote my life to, so I'm going to devote it to violence. And that's something that's true in all things, like the alt-right and the far left. And that generally the radicals are people that really don't have much to do in life. Like I'm not saying that as a bad. I kind of am, but I don't mean to say it as a bad thing. But it's just a fact. I'm saying it as a fact that these people are devoting their life to this because this is their life. This is it. They don't have much else in any other area, so they're devoting it to this. And their methods are often violent. Antifa leaders admit they're willing to physically attack anyone who employs violence against them or who condones racism, as long as force is used in the name of eradicating hatred. Now I want to go to another article that CNN did that's also somewhat correct. They actually say the same thing later in the article, but I want to address it now. There's a line here from a guy named Crow, who's apparently part of Antifa, that says, members use violence as a means of self-defense, and they believe property destruction does not equate to violence. But Crow said the philosophy of Antifa is based on the idea of direct action. The idea in Antifa is that we go where they, right-wingers, go. That hate speech is not free speech. That if you are endangering people with what you say and the actions that are behind them, then you do not have a right to do that. So that's something to keep in mind about them, that to them, smashing windows, like destruction of property, they are Marxists. They are communists. They believe that property is not an actual thing. They think property is immoral. The line, property is theft. So again, to them, they also say that hate speech is violence. So they actually believe that hate speech is violence. Now, I understand part of what they're getting at, and that sure, if I go out and say I'm going to kill everyone, or if I go out and say, like, we need to commit genocide, and I'm rallying people, then that can lead to violence. I understand that. And that's where, like, that's the whole fire in a crowded theater thing, that you're not really, it's not under the principle of free speech, because you do wish to cause violence. Your end goal is violence. So in that aspect, yes. But the issue is, it's the whole where do you draw the line thing. There are things like if I say we should commit genocide, that is a clear, while I am using my free speech, it is clear that I want violence. Therefore, I think it's appropriate for people to step in and say, hey, we got to stop this before it starts. The problem with Antifa is that they take anything, absolutely anything they disagree with, to be inciting violence. They'll take a guy like the whole immigration thing. They'll say, hey, maybe we should, like, if you're someone that's like, maybe we should have tighter controls on immigration, or, Trump's really not that bad. I mean, I don't like him, but he's not that bad. If you say that, I mean, to them, that's hate speech. That's violence. And since they consider destruction of property not to be violence, they are justifying, and this isn't a stretch, they are justifying, hey, let's go out and destroy things. Let's go out, find these people, and destroy them. Destroy their property, because that's not violence. Although, they will go the one step further also and say, hey, if they are using hate speech, then we can retaliate. That is self-defense. They are actually saying, they're actually believing that if you say something they disagree with that they construe as violence, they can use violence as a means of self-defense against you. That's how it works from their perspective. And that's why the whole there's two sides thing, because these people really are talking about property is theft. We need communism. Anyone that's even right-wing needs to be destroyed because they're fascist. Like, this isn't a stretch. This is Antifa. Now, granted, Antifa are They don't represent the left. They are very, very far left as you can go, anarcho-communists. But this is what they believe. That's why we have to go with the two sides thing. Because if this is the first time you're really figuring out what Antifa is all about, things might get a bit clear because no one's covering this. Nobody's talking about this as much as they should. That Antifa is out there actually causing harm and doing much, much worse than most of the right wing. Again, most of the left wing as well. But this is what we talk about when we're defending, we're defending hate speech, we're defending the alt-right. I don't like the alt-right. I think they're wrong. I think their embrace of identity politics is stupid. But when people say it's okay to punch Nazis, I have to say, no, that's wrong, because the definition of a Nazi includes you, it includes me, it includes pretty much everyone you know about from the perspective of Antifa. That's what this is all about. So back to the original article. From Oregon to Germany, anti-fascist and the Black Bloc tactic originated in Nazi Germany and resurfaced in the United Kingdom in the 1980s. Large numbers of Antifa activists first appeared in the United States as anti-World Trade Organization protests in 1999 in Seattle, and then more recently during the Occupy Wall Street movement, but their profile has been rising. Antifa demonstrators have marched in more than half a dozen protests since Election Day in Portland, Oregon, according to police. Early this year, Antifa activists were among those who smashed windows and set fires during protests at the University of California, Berkeley, leading to the cancellation of far-right provocateur Milo Yiannopoulos and withdrawal of Ann Coulter as speakers. Again, nitpicking, he's not far-right. In fact, he's probably to the left of me, to be honest. Antifa activists were in New York City on May Day, when the son of Senator Tim Kaine, the 2016 Democratic nominee for vice president, was arrested in Minnesota in March after protesting at a pro-Trump rally. He was dressed in black bloc alongside a group of Antifa supporters. He faces misdemeanor charges and not yet entered a plea, but will be in court next month. A Kaine spokesperson says he was peacefully protesting and wasn't disruptive. Now, the reason I bring this up, and if you're not aware of this, to make things a bit easier, I tend to cut out parts of the article I don't think are relevant. So if you see something I didn't mention, it's not because I'm like, I don't want to talk about that. It's because I don't think it's relevant. Post a comment if you disagree, tell me about it. But the reason I bring this up is because you have the 2016 Democratic nominee for vice president, Tim Kaine. His son is part of Antifa. Was he violent? I have no idea. I don't know if he was actually part of it. But the fact that he is aligned with Antifa, that he was dressed with it. He was dressed in black bloc, which, as far as I can tell, that makes you Antifa. That if you are dressed in black, that's the garb of Antifa. That makes me concerned, because again, this guy's letting his son join Antifa. Like, really? He's letting his son become radical? And I guess maybe it's just because, Trump is everything he hates because his father's running against him. But, jeez, like, if you want to talk about endorsement of this, like, this guy's letting his son run around in Antifa, jeez, like, that's what people talk about when they say, like, the far left seems to be endorsing Antifa by not denouncing them, not talking about them. It's like, this is the kind of stuff that's worrisome. But, and white nationalists, neo-Nazis, and others who have been blamed for provoking violence in last week's Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville, Virginia, claim it was Antifa that first got aggressive. A 20-year-old man who had attended the rally later used his car to ram a crowd of counter-protesters, killing one of them. Though counter-protesters deny they are to blame for violence, Trump this week declared blame on both sides and has drawn intense criticism for his view. Again, this should clear this all up. Alt-right, I don't like him. I don't think Trump likes him. But look at this. Look at it. Like, what we have gone through with Antifa already. They believe property is theft. They believe in destroying property. They believe in destroying anything and anyone that is even slightly to the right. So this is why we're saying there's blame on both sides, because what we've seen so far is these people are willing to use violence against the alt-right just for saying things. Some of what they say may be inciting violence. Holding up swastika flags, I kind of have to wonder, like, it's kind of messed up. Like, you people are wrong, and I hate it. Like, these people holding up swastika flags, like, are just as bad in my opinion. But here you have Antifa talking about, like, you don't need a swastika flag. You just need, like, to walk up and say, I think I think restricting immigration might be necessary, and they will punch you. And that's why we say there's blame on both sides. Indeed, over the past year, Antifa members have been involved in clashes across the country and the world, including in Chicago, Philadelphia, Houston, Alabama, and Nebraska, and at the G20 summit in Hamburg, Germany. Anti-racists or anti-fascists are not a new phenomenon, said Brian Levin, director of the Center for the Study of Hate and Extremism at California State University San Bernardino. What I think is new is that they're more active in making themselves prominent at violent rallies and also trying to bridge into the disenfranchised, peaceful, progressive movement. Bat went into Charlottesville, too, and was just about 5 feet away from the car that drove through the crowd, killing protester Heather Heyer, he said. Before that, Antifa protesters were cheering in celebration for having disrupted the neo-Nazi message. Again, they're cheering for disrupting it. Like, they're the people that say, these people, they're the ones, like, their goal is to attack and cause trouble. And that's why when I hear that the alt-right people were carrying weapons, and it's like, oh, they were just looking for violence. I think some of them were looking for violence. Like, some of them were like, I just can't wait till Antifa shows up and then we can beat them up. Give them a taste of their own medicine. I get that, but and if you were part of the alt-right and you were peaceful, but you're part of the alt-right, and you show up to a rally, aren't you going to wear some self-defense? Aren't you going to be prepared to defend yourself? Because it's basically guaranteed that Antifa is going to show up, and they did. So in that sense, like, some of these people probably were entirely doing it for self-defense because they knew they were going to be attacked. Spurred to action by Trump. Antifa is impossible to track. It isn't united through a national organization, and it cloaks itself in anonymity. In speaking to Antifa leaders across the country, CNN found a very few who would take off their masks. Indeed, it took months to track down members willing to share their stories. Many are like Bat, a self-described government skeptic with liberal views who didn't find mainstream politics a good fit for him, so he weighed his options. Before J20, Inauguration Day, happened, I was convinced I'd go to NASA or some university to research, Bat said. Now facing a criminal record, I don't know, he said. My efforts might be better suited by an organization that helps communities. So, he screwed up his life. And he's never going to NASA. Like, sorry, dude, you're not going to NASA. And I don't want you in NASA. I don't think anybody wants you in NASA. Well, some people do. Other members of Antifa, perhaps. He's destroyed his life. It's one of those things where now he's going to double down. As he says here, the son of parents who immigrated from India, Bat is sure of one thing. He has no plans to stop protesting. He's in it for the long haul. And he screwed up his life. And that's why, like, a lot of these people are just young kids. A lot of these people are, like, 18, 19, 20 years old who are all like, hey, this guy is a Nazi. This, like, university professors have told me Trump is evil and terrible. He's a terrible person, so I need to step up and fight him. He's going to bring authoritarianism and fascism to the new world. Like, again, he's not my ideal president. He's done a few things I don't like. But I always push back. So many people are pushing back just because, and defending him even when they shouldn't. Just because of these Antifa people and the establishment media who's just like, hey, this guy is literally Hitler. It's like, that's when you have to push back. There are people who are energized by Bernie Sanders that now are anarchists, said an organizer of the website It's Going Down, a news blog for Antifa. People are freaked out by a Trump regime, freaked out by far right. A lot of people saw neo-Nazi symbols. There's a reason why people are becoming polarized. It's real-life stuff that's happening. Sanders, for his part, is disavowed violence, saying, I don't like this. Well, good for him. The organizer of It's Going Down said his website traffic has grown from a few hundred hits daily to between 10,000 and 40,000 on its best days. There's a crisis among the left, he said, and they're looking for alternatives outside of party structures. The anarchist movement is one that's working outside structures. People are excited about that. That's to me what's concerning, like why I'm very concerned about Antifa now is because a lot of them, I mean, they're just kind of like pathetic kids that they're people I wouldn't be afraid of one-on-one, but they're growing. Like right here, 10,000 to 40,000 on its best days. Now, still, that's not that much, but geez, like these people, as far as I can tell, whenever there's a clash between them and the alt-right, Antifa always outnumbers them. And again, numbers can do a lot. Even if these people aren't that like tough themselves, they're growing, and that's concerning. I mean, apparently, they've been around for a while. I didn't know that. I mean, I knew the name has been around for quite a while, but it seems that this group is really growing, and people are finally learning about them, only because they're actually like really becoming violent now. And that's what's concerning. Like many young Antifa members who spoke with CNN, the turning point for Bat was when Trump in late 2015 ad-libbed a campaign remark to a Black Lives Matter protester, saying he should have been roughed up. There's some points knocked off of CNN for this article. He said maybe he should have been roughed up. And I get, that's nitpicking, it's just one word. I'm going to play this. I'm going to play the clip here of when he said that. Of when he said, hey, maybe we should rough him up. And tell me what you think.
Obnoxious and so loud. He was screaming. I had 10,000 people in the room yesterday, 10,000 people, and this guy started screaming by himself. And I don't know, rough up. Maybe he should have been roughed up because it was absolutely disgusting what he was doing.
Antifa members. Trump in February 2016 told a campaign crowd in Cedar Rapids, Iowa to knock the crap out of protesters holding tomatoes, adding, "I will pay for the legal fees. I promise, I promise." There was a normalization of political violence which first started with regard to the Trump rallies, Levin said. Now that I disagree with. Because these people are showing up like holding tomatoes. They're going to throw tomatoes at people. Like, they're the ones looking for trouble. And there is a fine line here that depends on what happens. Exactly, but people are showing up looking for trouble. If you show up on my property and start threatening me, even if you're not like violent towards me, I might have to use force till you get off my property. Like it's one of those things like, get out. And if you're not going to leave, I might have to escalate things to get you out of there. And that's what this is about. It's, if you want to like take the entire thing that's happening in the US right now, and the Western world even, and shrink it down just to like your property. So you're minding your own business. I mean, you're talking with, say you have a few people over, you're talking about some pretty radical stuff. Say you're like, maybe you're recording a podcast so other people know about it. And someone shows up to your house and starts shouting out your window. Like people start smashing your windows because, as we've seen already, Antifa says, hey, like, destroying property isn't violence. They say it's justified. So people start smashing your windows. I mean, first thing you're probably going to do is call the cops. But say, like, take the cops out of the equation. You're going to do what it takes to get them off your property, up to and including violence. Now, I think violence is one of those things where if people are destroying your property, you can fight back up to where they stop. Now, if someone is being disruptive and annoying, and you beat the crap out of them to the point where they're like, they have to go to the hospital and get surgery, no, that's taking it way too far. Just like the Charlottesville thing, like, the guy who drove and killed someone went way too far. Like, I hope he gets thrown in jail. I hope he gets punished for this. However, fighting back I'm all for that. Like, fighting back up to the point where they stop. That's what it's all about. And that's what I think what's going on. Antifa is showing up looking for trouble. And then we try to say, hey, get out of here. And maybe try to, like, rough them up. Try to say, like, okay, it's time to go until they get out. Then they're like, okay, it's time to use violence. That's what's going on here. This is self-defense. For almost 3 decades, Scott Crow was part of the Antifa movement. I fought against Nazis. I've had death threats. I've had guns drawn on me. I've had drawn guns on fascists. I've been in altercations. I've smoked bomb places. He said, I've done a myriad of things to try and stop fascism and its flow over the years. Activist Don Blackblock, Crow said, as a means to an end. Now again, when looking at this, you gotta remember, they think property is theft and destroying property is not violence. And they also think hate speech is violence. And they also think fascists are pretty much anyone that disagrees with them. So with that in mind, reread this. Or go through that last, that bit again. And now think of what they've been doing. I've had guns drawn on me, probably by cops. I've drawn guns on fascists, probably ordinary people. I've been in altercations, probably with ordinary people. I smoked bomb places, probably people that weren't doing anything wrong. I've done a myriad of things to try and stop ordinary people and its flow over the years. That's messed up. Even though it only takes one person to break a window, it doesn't matter because the block moves together, said a 26-year-old Mara who wouldn't give her last name. We cover our face because the Nazis will try to find out who we are, and that is a very bad thing because they harass people, says the people harassing people. We're trying to stop them from organizing. When they organize, they kill people, they hurt people, they fight people, and we're the ones who are fighting back. Now, just please think about this personally. Like, how many alt-right groups have organized and started hurting people when Antifa wasn't there, without any protesters? You're not talking about lone wolves because they're all nuts. They're mentally, like, I think we can talk about lone wolves as a whole different thing. Because lone wolves aren't organizing. These people are organizing. The alt-right is organizing. Think of a time when they have gone out and hurt people like Antifa has. Without a clash. Because the thing is, we can always try to figure out, like, who started it between Antifa and the alt-right. Who started it? I think it's Antifa. It seems it's always been Antifa. But take them out of the equation. Think of a group where it's been just them. Just the alt-right. No other people fighting back. no other opposite group clashing with them. When have they been hurting people and attacking people? Correct me if I'm wrong, but I can't think of anything. Whereas I can think of times, say like January 20th, the inauguration, when Antifa has just started attacking people, has started destroying things. That's why I'm against them more. It's not that I'm siding with the alt-right. It's that I'm against Antifa even more. And here they explain it. Here they explain something I explained earlier from the different article: violence against Windows. There's no such thing as violence against Windows. Windows they're not persons. And when they are persons, the people we fight back against them, they're evil. They are the living embodiment. They are the second coming of Hitler. And when they mean that, they're talking about you and me and ordinary people. That's what's so scary. I'm going to skip through a few things here because it's all about like the what do they believe that I went through earlier. I like this Levin guy. No, not Mark Levin, this other guy from this article that says, no, it's not okay to punch a Nazi. If white nationalists are sophisticated at anything, it's the ability to try to grasp some kind of moral high ground when they have no other opportunity. And that's provided when they appear to be violently victimized. That's the only moral thread they can hang their hats on. And we're stupid if we're giving them this opportunity. This is spot on. Unrelated note, if you want to stop like the alt-right rallies, get rid of Antifa. Get rid of them. I'm not talking about like genocide. No. If Antifa were to just disappear tomorrow, I guarantee you the alt-right would start to vanish. I don't think it'd go away, but it would certainly shrink. Because this is the biggest thing. That when you see Antifa attacking these people sympathize with the alt-right. They say, okay, I don't like these people, but they're under attack, and they have some points. And Antifa is giving them those points. They're justifying them. So this thing, stand against Antifa. Stand against both of them equally. But stand against Antifa at least as much as you stand against the alt-right. And the alt-right will disappear as well. Now there's a clip you'll see here playing of Antifa, I believe it was during May Day, of them destroying windows and property, all that, so you can get an idea of what's going on if you haven't already seen them. But here, CNN talks about like something that happened on June 4th. Hoping to keep June 4th from becoming another May Day, police created a human barricade. Officers stood shoulder to shoulder between two city squares, one filled with alt-right groups, the other with Antifa activists. After a few hours, it seemed peace had won the day. But then police caught whispers that Antifa members were planning to rush past police into the alt-right rally square. Officers moved in with rubber bullets, pepper spray, and smoke bombs. They pushed the masked Antifa activists into a corner and detained them. Many shed their black clothing and left it on the streets as police decided whom to arrest. We did seize a large number of weapons or things that could be used as weapons, Simpson said. Everything from knives to brass knuckles to poles and sticks and bricks and bottles and road flares and chains. 100% they came geared up to a fight if it would be allowed. That should give you some insight. It feels to me that there's a struggle in this country of the different kinds of speech and what's okay to say and what's not okay, Simpson said. But one thing is very clear is that free speech and protected speech can be very offensive and very hateful, but it's still not a crime. In Portland, where the Rose City Antifa had been active for decades, members focus on outing people they believe are neo-Nazis, even trying to get them fired and evicted from their homes. We've done mass mailings. We've even gone door to door before in communities, said the group's leader, who spoke on condition of anonymity. We've gone out to areas that we know that a lot of Nazis live with, like wanted posters, like, do you have any information on this person? And put them up in the area. And we usually get a flurry of tips like, yeah, this person works here, and so on and so on. But like other Antifa groups across the country, the Portland set gets the most attention when violence explodes at its rallies. And for that, its members don't apologize. Again, think about what they're doing here. Like, they're going around, they're hunting down people, trying to find them in their homes, trying to get them fired from their jobs. And you gotta remember, again, when they say Nazis, a lot of them are ordinary people. Some, sure, neo-Nazis, but for the most part, ordinary people. And when they think Trump is a Nazi, you can have your disagreements about him, but he's not a Nazi. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. They're saying he's a Nazi. Like, if they think if they think he's a Nazi, then they think all of his supporters are at the very least Nazi sympathizers. And at the very least, if they hear people saying, well, I don't like Trump, but he's not a Nazi, well, then they're going to like, okay, well, you're a Nazi sympathizer. But yeah, this is pretty much the end of the article here. Just something to keep in mind, that these people do believe violence is necessary against the average person. That's what is so concerning. Leave some comments. Tell me what you think. Maybe I missed something. Maybe I'm not characterizing them correctly because, I don't know, I'm not part of Antifa, so I'm just basing it off of what I've seen. If you enjoy this video, if you learned something, then please share it. Please like it. Subscribe for more. It really helps me a lot. In the description, there's all kinds of different social media things I'm on. Minds.com, Gab, Dailymotion, VidMe, like on everything I can find. BitChute even. But yeah, go follow me there. I'd really appreciate it. It helps me out. And thank you for watching.